So why did I spend 8 months in the Philippines? Because most people, when they have a few months ahead and a bit of money, they will choose to go around the world and go to multiple countries. And then they are full of good memories and they will say, the people from there are super nice, from there they're like this or like that. But these impressions are most of the time totally biased and incorrect because you need time to discover a place, of course. I wanted to do exactly the opposite. I wanted to go to one place only and discover that place, what it feels like to live there. That's what I call some sort of stay tourism. You don't travel, you stay in one place, just like a local. And most of the people who go to the Philippines for about 2-3 weeks in Boracay, Palawan, Bohol, Moalboal, or other touristic spots, they are like, oh, Filipinos are so nice and happy, Philippines are so great, blah, 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 blah. So I stayed 8 months to dive in the culture, to dig deeper than that. I don't want to pretend I know a country or people just because I spent 3 weeks over there. I still don't know this culture, of course, but I have a better idea of what it is. I would like to tell you that with me there's no sugar coating. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna tell you what you want to hear. So you need to accept my truths and the bad truths as well. I'm gonna try to tell them as kindly as possible, of course. If you are a Pinoy, truly I don't want to diminish your country. And thank you for welcoming me. That's not the point. But you know, I'm not an American, I'm a French. And, you know, I don't pretend that everything is super cool, super great, awesome, and so on. I'm not like, woo, so nice all the time. You know, Americans have this pressure to find, you know, everything positive. I don't have this pressure. So I'm gonna talk about the positive, but also the negative, so be ready for it. So what did I do in the Philippines? I bought first a motorcycle and registered it, which was already a big challenge in itself. Then I decided to make videos about people, about their daily lives. I followed for multiple days, for example, a guy called Kevin, who is a moto taxi driver. And then I followed a farmer, then a woman surviving in a dump site, then a fisherman. And it's that fisherman who made me want to buy a boat for myself because it's super cheap. It's about $700. They call it a palm boat. These are boats made of plywood and bamboo. They're cheap and fast. I bought one that was pretty slow first and then another one which was extremely fast, which was going up to 80 kilometers per hour. As you can see, we've seen incredible landscapes with this. So what I want to tell you is that I haven't stayed in a resort hotel. I mingled with people. I've experienced, I traveled by bike, by boat, I've dated, went on islands where no tourists ever go. I didn't stay peacefully in my comfort. So my testimony here isn't based on a very shallow, vague idea. It's made of 8 months of experiencing very, very different things. By the way, there aren't a lot of tourists in the Philippines. They are located in specific areas, and overall, there just aren't a lot of tourists in the Philippines. Roughly 4 times less than in Vietnam, just to give you an idea. It was actually rare for me to see tourists, especially where I was going. And again, I wanted to mingle with the locals, so I was happy to avoid tourists. Let's talk about the weather. First of all, the biggest problem I had was the weather. And that's very personal. It's 33 degrees all the time, but the real temperature, the temperature that you feel with your body, is roughly between 40 and 45 all the time, all year long. It's way too much for my white body because yes, their bodies are made to release heat and our bodies are made to preserve the heat. It's a genetic difference. I was really suffering from heat. But of course, not all whites are like me. I met a guy from Florida, he was very happy of this weather, but averagely, white people are having a very difficult time with this heat. I've been sick so many times, the heat was seriously impacting my immune system, so moments were extremely difficult. Even standing in the city center for a few minutes was difficult for me. I tried to run, actually to have a jog, to jog outside at night, even at 3 a.m. It was impossible. And that's why my thoughts very often go to the construction workers, for example, who have to endure incredible amounts of heat, just like farmers. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And then they sleep in, I don't know how to say it, it's like in cages, or they sleep in a little house made of plywood, they sleep together, they have no intimacy. It's slavery. basically. So I have a real compassion, admiration, respect, empathy for them, really. My morning ugly face. Mae tells me that these are not slaves. They live in there. They work Monday to Saturday, non-stop, under like a scorching sun. And after they sleep like dogs in there without AC, without nothing. And she tells me these are not slaves. And I'm all the time wondering how she can think like that.
It's because they are paid.
We throw you some meat on the floor, just eat it, So you're not a slave, It's okay, we feed you.
And they are not forced to do it.
Yeah, but if they don't do it, they starve, so...
You're just French princess.
Another thing that makes everything worse is the lack of wind. Aside from the many typhoons the Philippines experiences every now and then, there is almost no wind. On some small islands like Siquijor or Bentayan, you will have a bit more wind, but that will not be incredible. So in my eyes, the heat considerably reduces your freedom. It means you cannot hike, you cannot make sports. Walking outside is often limited. It makes every exploration much more complicated. Then I'm going to talk about family. Family is deeply connected to money in the Philippines. And most of the time, it's kids who give to parents, not the other way around like in the West. But that leads to a tragic situation. For some reasons, in most families, there is very often one person that will sacrifice himself or herself to pay for the other family members. It could be to support the grandfather or the mother, or for the studies of the siblings, or just to support some of them who just don't want to work, actually. In any case, one person in the family will be sacrificed and will work incredible amount of hours his or her whole life. It's a very difficult thing for the sacrificed ones. They receive often tons of pressure. Many cousins or nieces will just contact them out of nowhere to have money, and once they receive that money, they won't show a lot of gratitude. And saying no in that context for the person who is sacrificed is extremely complicated, because if they do, everybody will think that they are greedy and not generous. So it's some sort of racketing, bullying, which is permanently going on in families, and when some of them ask money, they always say they want to borrow. Yes, that's because they are too fake to tell the truth. Of course, when you give that money, it's forever gone. Because yes, Filipinos are no exception to most Asians. They don't really express what they feel, and they don't really like when the truth is said out loud. They don't like to be direct. They can seem very cute, but soon enough you can discover another side of them which can be much darker. What I mean is this: in the West, I can spot quite easily who I can trust or not. But in the Philippines, my radar is not working at all. The positive side of it is that families will not be as torn apart as in the West. They kind of stick together no matter what. That is a very positive side. They can have very, very serious and deep disagreements, and they still will have a meal together. It doesn't mean they will talk. It means they will just eat together. And by the way, it's their big sign that they want to make peace with you if you are in an argument with them. If they say let's eat, it means there is a ground for peace. But you will never have a big talk about how you feel, how they feel. You're never gonna go into some sort of deep psychological talk together. It's not gonna happen. Also, in many families, knowing the hardships of the last decades in the Philippines, you can find a lot of traumas. And I mean real traumas, not just your dad who was away when you grew up, which is the Western trauma, Of course, psychology is a luxury that almost nobody can afford over there, so they just deal with their demons all the time. And that leads me to the next topic. It is very difficult to be a Pinoy, to be a Filipino. Not just because healthcare is almost non-existent, not just because there is, filth and poverty everywhere, but because of jobs and studies. If you want to study in the Philippines and you don't have family support, you are screwed. That's it. There is no such thing as student loan. It doesn't exist, and working and studying at the same time is almost impossible. And if you don't have a degree, it makes it very difficult to get a decent job. In the Philippines, even if you want to be, for example, a call center agent, companies are gonna ask you a degree. So without family supporting you, you don't get a degree, and without a degree, many jobs will be inaccessible to you. Another thing what Pinoys sometimes say is that they are prisoners of their own country, and this is true. I did not believe it at the beginning, but actually it's true. The incompetent psychopaths which are leading them decided it would be a good idea to prevent their own people to leave their own country. Yes, it happens very often that some Pinoy who get a visa for, let's say, Europe or the US, or who want to just travel to Hong Kong, will be stopped at the immigration of their own country, sometimes for no valuable reason. And that decision is based, of course, on the judgment of the agent. And then when it happens, they lose the ticket they paid. It's a sick system in which they are cut, which I thought was only going on in North Korea, but Filipino leaders did it without the help of communism. So now I'm gonna talk about Filipinos socially, and that's a very difficult topic, because Filipinos are actually very, very helpful. Yes, if you need something, if you have a flat tire, they will be here for you no matter what. That's their very positive side. They can welcome you in their homes, give you a bit of their food, which is already a lot. That would of course never happen in the West. I mean, it happens before, but now not anymore. They will do all of this, but it doesn't mean they're gonna talk to you. It's the opposite to the West, where people will talk to you easily, but they will not help you in any way. And that's actually why my experience in the Philippines was difficult. I like to talk. I enjoy meeting people, and giving me shelter or food is for me secondary. People often refused to talk to me in the name of shyness. I know what you're gonna say. I know it. You're gonna say what? It's the language barrier, it's because they don't know English. Of course, easy fix, easy solution. But no, it's not even about that. Even when people could speak English very well, they often refuse to because of shyness. Many Pinoy know very well how to speak English, not only because of the BPO industry, but because the Philippines were invaded by the American eagle for about 50 years. And that's actually why I chose the Philippines, is because English is way more used there than in Vietnam, of course. So I found myself many times in situations where I was with English-speaking Pinoys who refused to talk to me because they were shy. I'm gonna give you an example which is crazy. We were on a weekend trip with my girlfriend who was working in a call center and her ex-colleagues. And actually at the beginning I just started to talk to them because they were not making a step towards me, of course, because of this shyness. And I asked her basic questions like, hey, what about your life? How about your work? Just basic questions. You know what she answered me? She told me, oh, no English. So she was smiling, covering her mouth, typical from women over there. And I was like, okay, fine, that's a joke, probably. I'm just gonna move on and I'm just gonna come back to her later. Which I did because I don't give up. Then something like 30 minutes after, I was like, so, how about this weekend trip? Where are we gonna go? Do we have any plans? And so on. And she started again. She said, oh, no English. No. And I was like, okay. I was like, in my head, I was like, okay, girl, I know that you're working in a call center, which is calling to the US. I know your English is near perfect, so what's the game here? And I tried actually multiple times in a very kind way, of course, because I'm not, a barbarian. And actually there's a time when I was speaking to her directly in English. She understood me, of course, but she was answering to my girlfriend who was next to me while I was talking to her. Can you imagine that? I was talking to her, looking at her in English, and then she answered in her native language to my girlfriend so that she would translate it to me because this girl was just too shy. Can you imagine? And this kind of situation happens so many times. They just don't want to talk to you. So after a while, I managed to unlock her, if I can say, because there was probably like a premium membership to buy in order to talk to her, or I don't know what. And she's been more relaxed with me, but it took her such a long time. Because when she was ignoring me when I was talking to her, I was starting to get irate actually, because I was like, I started to say, hey, you speak English, I speak English. What's the game here? Like, what are we playing at? We are on a weekend trip together. We're stuck together. Are we gonna ignore each other? Is that the point of this weekend? But afterwards, it went better, but it took her a very long while. The other guy who was with her actually did not talk to me at all. He was all the time on his phone. That's it. And that kind of situation happens so many times in the Philippines, and you have no idea how frustrating this is. You go to the other side of the world. You want to meet a new culture, you want to talk to people, and then they don't talk to you because of shyness. I can, of course, understand shyness, because I can be shy, but to the very least, I'm gonna try to overcome it. Why? Because we taught me when I was a kid that ignoring someone is rude. And also because I have empathy, I don't want anyone to be or to feel rejected. In fact, during any party or gathering, when I see someone that is not talking, I'm gonna go to that person to talk to him or to her. But many Pinoy actually don't care about that. They will easily ignore you, so they're gonna act embarrassed, like they will smile, cover their mouths like that, and that's it. So at the beginning I was thinking, oh, that's so very cute, but after a while I got very, very, very extremely angry and tired of it, really. So here we are with a crowd of people just staring at us when we're gonna eat. They don't talk to us, they just stare at us, and that's it. The only reason why I travel is to meet new people, new ways of thinking. I don't care much about architecture, museums. I care a lot about history, but I love nature, but that's not the most important to me. I like to meet people, and Pinoy made it extremely difficult. And actually, this lack of social skills, I would say, clearly reflects on the time they averagely spend on their phones. It's one of the highest in the whole world. On average, 5 hours 30 on their phones per day, guys. Yeah, it's massive. In my country, France, it's about 2 hours to 2 hours 30. They spend a massive amount of time on their phones. They don't really talk when they meet. This is typical of what I saw in a restaurant, for example, when I was there. I'm showing you right now the videos. This is a family gathering. You can clearly see many young people on their phones, and there was an older woman, probably their mother or grandmother, without phone. No one was talking to her. You have no idea how sad this is. It's a dystopia. I don't like to see that. But in the Philippines, it's just normal. Everybody does that. I really thought that this would be more widespread in countries like Japan or Korea, but not at all. Actually, in my country, it's considered rude to pull up your phone like this in family gatherings or even between friends. But in the Philippines, it's just normal. Everybody does that. During my girlfriend's birthday, actually, there was one of her cousins who spent the whole evening alone on TikTok, shamelessly putting the volume very loud. I wanted to scold her, but that's the culture. You cannot change the culture. But I was so pissed at her, like, that's a birthday. You're supposed to to mingle a little bit, guys. Mingle, be social, don't be robots. But it did not happen. They were just zombie like that on her phone, like completely zombie. And that's really actually concerning. But the impression that Filipinos are social mostly comes from kids, because there are many YouTubers who are going to the slums and meet with the kids, and that gives you the image of a very social population, but that's not at all the case. The kids are all saying the same thing. They say all the time, hey bro, that's it. Okay, they don't speak English, that's not the point. I understand, but if you try to have a conversation with them, they just escape. They just run. Or it's gonna be like very short, very quick, and they greet you with a smile, which is already good, I take it, they are happy to get a bit of your attention. But when you see that like 50 times, you realize that's just it, and you get disappointed, The lack of social skills of the Filipinos is also very visible in the amount of bars in the Philippines. There are actually no bars in the Philippines. I mean, just a little bit in the biggest cities. It's not because it's a poor country. No, don't bring that talk here. Don't say, oh, it's poverty and so on. That's only excuse. If you go to poor, like South American countries, you will find bars. You will find strangers who are just gathering together. It happens, in Mexico, in other countries. But in the Philippines, they just don't go out a lot. And if they do, it's in the malls. That's it. But in the malls, there is nothing. They're just like maybe, Jollibee, which is the equivalent of McDonald's, there's nothing to do in there. Instead of going to the bar, they do some karaoke. Yeah, they love it. So do I.
How many times do I have to tell you that even when you cry, you're beautiful too? The world is.
But, at the beginning I was amazed by the amount of people doing karaoke, even in the most remote places. Even in poor areas, they will always do their best to have a karaoke set. That is fascinating. No matter how poor they are, they're gonna really try their best to, I don't know, manufacture something, do some DIY stuff to have their karaoke set. That's wonderful. But it's always the same. When you see 5 of them, you're amazed. When you see 10 of them, you're still amazed. When you see 20 of them, you start thinking, okay, do you have another thing to show me maybe? And when you see 100 of them, you understand that their whole social life is there and that they play on and on the same old songs from the 80s. Their whole entire lives. I got so sick of some songs, for example, I heard Bon Jovi 1,000,000 times, Celine Dion as well. Oh my god, I heard it so many times. I got so sick of it. But they don't get tired of it, really not. The other reason why there are so few bars and places where you can gather with other Filipinos is also because Filipinos sleep very early and get up very early. Actually, they have the rhythm, the pace of farmers. They sleep when the sunlight goes down, but actually, no, the sunlight goes down at 6:30, which is actually pretty boring, but whatever. And Pinoys now, they sleep, even in the city center, they sleep at around 9 and then they wake up at 3 or 4 with the chant of the rooster. They get up with the rooster and that's it. So it makes the life there, yeah, I'm gonna be honest, it makes it boring. Okay, it's boring. So now let's talk about people and money. That's also a very important topic. That has been the most disturbing thing about the Philippines for me. There were some people talking to me actually, and I was very relaxed about them. We were talking about any kind of things, about, the work of one of them who had very good English since he had been working on a cruise ship. It was very interesting to hear him because he had been all around the world. But my girlfriend kept on insisting that they just wanted to get my money and that I should be suspicious. And I was like, come on, don't be such a joy killer. It's okay, it's fine. I was really super relaxed. I could not believe her because I had known them since before her actually, for a few weeks already, and they had never asked me anything and they helped me for some few things. And when I asked them if they wanted a bit of money in return, they always declined. But that's the trap. I was asking them this with my Westerner mindset, where you ask something and people answer you directly, yes or not. But that's not Filipino. No. Actually, they were all expecting something, but they were never, ever admitting it. Because of shame? I don't know. But for many months, we were friends with these people, talking very often, spending some evenings together, but their strategy, which I end up seeing a lot in the Philippines, is to fake. It's incredible. It's like the CIA, it's undercover stuff, Their strategy is to fake a friendship for a very, very long time, just for money. Actually, after I left the Philippines, I asked them, the same people, some news, because I still did not believe they could fake a friendship for so many months. And they asked me thousands of dollars. Not even, hey, what's up, or nothing. Just they asked me thousands of dollars. I was like, okay, man, fine. That's enough, I don't need to know more. So that's not the point. I understand poverty. I understand that some people have been asking me money wherever I was going in the world. I accepted or I refused, but never in my whole life I've seen some people going as low as faking and deceiving so much just to get a bit of money. That was for me totally new and disgraceful, if you want my point of view. But the worst of it is that if they have money, they just spend all of it all the time. alcohol, cockfights, birthdays, you name it. And then they go back to borrowing money to everybody. There's a guy who spends like $300 on the birthday of his 1-year-old girl. What, that's very cute, so that's a good thing to do, overall. But when you're poor and when you cannot even afford a doctor for your daughter, is that really a good idea? No, but that's typical Filipino. They're gonna spend huge amount of money on the birthday of I don't know what girl or boy. They're gonna kill the baboy, the pork. They're gonna make lechon with it. They're gonna roast it and so on. And then no money. Oh, we have to borrow. Really, what a surprise, yeah. So now we're gonna talk about women. Many guys are coming to the Philippines for women, of course, expecting to find there the perfect traditional wife, it means. That wasn't my case. I know that women are roughly pretty much the same everywhere. I was not expecting some miracles. But while I was there, I've dated, of course, otherwise that would be boring, right? To be honest with you, I was expecting a lot of gold diggers because, that's what people say. They say, be careful, they are gold diggers, choo-choo, and so on. But actually, to me, it's pretty much a legend. It's just as hard to date there than here, for example. And most women are truly not attracted by money. They just want someone real, someone faithful. But this legend that they are all gold diggers and chasing your passport, I understood very well where it comes from. It comes from all the old, pathetic Western losers who are coming in the Philippines to find themselves some sort of 18-year-old girls to marry. And guess what? In that case, yes, these losers do find some old diggers. What a surprise, of course. And when they find out that their girlfriend are gold diggers, they cry and complain like babies. Because no, in the Philippines, I haven't seen anyone around my age who was living there and dating a Filipina. It was only retired Americans, Germans, or other nationalities. So they are the ones carrying the legends of gold diggers. But myself, I have never encountered a single gold digger. When I was there, I was dating on Tinder. And since I don't like chatting, I was just telling them, hey, let's not chat. Let's just meet. I invite you for a meal, because a meal is very cheap over there, of course. Very often they insisted to pay a part of it just to show me they were not interested in my money. They repeated that all the time, and many women were also just not interested in me. It happens. And it's just like here. Here, many women are not interested in me. It's just like that. So no, 99% of Filipinas are not chasing your passport. They don't give a damn, okay? But women and Filipinos, you have to know, they love the drama. They love to create some stories because when they are bored, they will do what they call marites. It's just gossiping. You think that gossiping is everywhere in the West? Well, it's nothing compared to the Philippines. Whether it's jealousy or fake jealousy, they create tons of stories, and that's the same in couples. Now we're gonna talk about safety. The Philippines are extremely safe. Yeah, I know many people will tell you otherwise, but I was able to go in any kind of slums with my camera, expensive cameras. I never had a single problem. There were no tensions, no weird people looking at me. They also don't even lock their motorcycles. They leave their helmets on them very often. Filipinos will always tell you that the country is unsafe. That's something that comes all the time. But it's because they have no idea what's going on outside of the Philippines. This being said, the crime rate in the Philippines is much higher than in Vietnam. It's roughly the same than in the US, but myself, I've never ever been confronted to violence. Really not. And that also shows in their behavior on the roads. I've never seen a road rage, a finger lifted or anything like that. They are extremely calm and peaceful. Once I did a massive mistake on the road, and the guy that I almost killed just smiled to me and said, it's okay, it's okay. On this, I have to say, they are absolutely incredible. They are very patient. So let's talk about the beauty and traveling. I did the classics, I jumped into a lot of rivers. I've been traveling with a PAM boat, which is, the fisherman's boat. I did many things. Yes, sometimes the nature is pretty beautiful, but there are many areas that are overcrowded. Many islands which are disgusting, polluted. It's far from being all glamorous. I made a video showing you a disgusting island where there isn't isn't a single meter square available. That's also the Philippines, don't forget it. The country is very densely populated. There are about 400 inhabitants per kilometer square. To give you a comparison, in the US, it's 10 times less. And actually this number is deceiving because the Philippines are mostly made of mountains. So in reality, it's more than just 400 inhabitants per kilometer square because they are all packed on the seashore. The other thing is that when you travel to any place, any waterfall, they will always ask you money. There is like a small mafia who's gonna keep the place and pretend they own it and just charge you for going there. So you cannot just enter freely on most of the beaches. There's always gonna be an asshole asking you money even though it's a public place. Other thing, that's my personal taste, but I was not in love with nature. Of course, I love the white sand beaches, but there were not so many of them, and again you have to pay to go there. But apart from that, it's a lot of jungle, so it means a very small amount of paths where you can walk. There's almost no paths to have a trail because the forest is so dense. The other surprising thing is that there's almost no flowers. There is almost no birds. We cannot hear birds. This is incredible. I don't know why. Another thing I would like to talk about is the arrogance of the middle class in the Philippines. There is a small middle class in the Philippines, but when they start to become middle class, they become so cocky, so arrogant. They're looking down on, the other people who are poor, like, we made it and not you. It's this kind of looking down, it's so bad. And the perfect expression of that arrogance is a car, actually. It's the symbolism of success. It's the Ford Raptor, actually, yes. There are, of course, other equivalent models from Toyota. It's not only the Ford Raptor, but when they get that car, wow, their ego implodes, It means that that's it, we made it. We're above the mass, we can spit on these dirty people, That's how they are, And I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up, like, shut up, stop this attitude, you're so fucking arrogant, get back to who you were originally. You come from the same place, the same kind of families. Stop showing off. That's what I think when I see that, and it makes me so pissed. Because they are in their, their 4x4s, which are, by the way, extremely cheap over there. But they are with their tainted windows and their, I don't know. It makes me, I don't like that. So now let's talk about kids. They make kids because, there is no contraceptives, so they make a lot of kids. Also, there's no abortion because, it's a very Christian country. There is no divorce as well in the Philippines. It's super toxic in case of disagreement, of course. The kids are very, very intrusive. They are cute, very cute. I want to adopt all of them, but super intrusive to the point that we had to really insist and raise our voice to have a bit of peace after hours of sticking with us. Really, they are intrusive. I played a game on an island, I challenged them to run as fast as me. Unfortunately, I've been filming like shit, but on a small island, we were running like crazy. I was trying to escape from them. There was a whole tribe of these kids following me on every little street. It was super funny and crazy. So the challenge is to escape from them. We're gonna run into the streets. So 1, go! Oh, what the fuck? He followed. You followed. You crazy asses. There's even more.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Renault. Still here, oh my god.
She said you run so fast. Just let them like be surround you, and then after a minute or an hour maybe they will get tired of you, so they will go away.
And now it's impossible.
Go!
Also, something really strange is that male kids can be extremely harsh on each other and harsh as a whole. But female kids are the opposite. They are super, super, super sweet. And I've been really, surprised by the difference, really. But when they grow up, it's, kind of equalizes, the guys start to be pretty peaceful, but in appearance always, because I never know what's going on in their minds because, for me they have a poker face. And yeah, so I'm gonna make a conclusion. I'm never gonna come back to the Philippines because it was difficult for me to talk to people. People were not very open to me, and people are too often on their phones. I don't like that. And Filipinos, unlike everything people say, did not struck me as happy. They are not a happy people. That's not what I think. I think they are sad, and I understand them, really. Yes, they smile, but it's important to have the emotional intelligence to understand that there is more to it, than just a smile. Overall, the Philippines are a broken country, for real, with very little room for hope because the key factor for a country to grow is education. And Pinoy are not really educated about anything. There is a lot of ignorance going on in the Philippines about pretty much anything, history, science, you name it. Many of them have no idea that, for example, Japan invaded them in the 20th century, for example. Many of them believe in witches, for real. There are some people many people who believe in witches. Many people still take antibiotics for any reason. It could be anything. They take antibiotics without doctor. It happens a lot. Many of them worship the US when actually Filipinos were placed in human zoos attached to the neck with ropes just the last century. They take everything from the US. Justin Bieber, Taylor Swift. There is only this. They all love it. There is no other. There's no counterculture. They did not really develop their own culture. And that's a shame. I also met a woman, and that was not an exception, She was not retarded or anything for real, But she believed that the sun was setting on her island on the same place it rises. Like some stuff like that. You're like, what? How can you believe that? Some people believe that calling on the phone will bring a thunderstorm. Yeah, they have some sort of superstitions like that belong to the Middle Age and before. At the beginning, I was amazed that this still exists today. But when you realize that it's the thing that keeps them poor and miserable, well, you don't like it so much. Because you don't have to forget that, many kids are dying because they are untreated. Yes, poverty means this. It means that you have a problem, you have a disease, you die. That's it. There is no we're gonna take care of you. No, it doesn't exist. Corruption is killing the country and people seem to be pretty okay with that, and ignorance keeps the country corrupt. It's a vicious cycle in which they are caught, and I'm not optimistic for their future. They heavily depend on the BPO industry, which is declining with the rise of AI. So after this is gone, what other option will they have? I don't know. And the worst is probably yet to come. With global warming, it's already pretty hard to live in the Philippines now, but I cannot imagine what it's gonna be like in, let's say, 10 to 15 years. It's gonna be extremely, extremely hot. How are they gonna deal with that? So, again, I'm sorry if you're Pinoy, if I hurt your love for your country. That's not my intention. My intention was really to tell the truth about what I think. You can bitch about France, and there is no problem. You can say whatever you want about my country in the comments or in a video. I don't care. I don't mind, as long as it's honest, truthful, and yeah. So thank you for watching. Bye bye.